Welcome, everybody, to more CGL Season 13 playoff coverage. My name is Balzi. I'm joined here by Megalast on the cast, as it's time to cover another match in the lower bracket for the EU Masters division here, Megalast.
Absolutely, and we have what's sure to be an amazing game, I feel like, on our hands. We're in the lower bracket, like you said, so winner stays alive, keeps that playoff dream going. Loser is out and done for the season, so both these squads have everything to play for, and, there's no second chances anymore. This is it, and these squads, historically speaking, they're pretty matched up against each other. The one time they played this season, going the distance to that 5-mapper where Munich ended up winning. But I mean, we're in a completely different game now, Bowsy.
Yep, absolutely. It's a completely different game. We just recently had a patch that has nerfed Orisa, which was the most predominant tank in the meta, and also restored that DPS passive to 20%. So now it's going to be interesting to see what these two teams are planning to run out here, and what's going to be the composition of choice for these two teams.
Yeah. As we're taking a look at our lineups here, we're first seeing Munich Esports. They've got Noah, Picasso on that DPS line, Shiana, and of course being your ever reliable tank, and then Crush and PC, the only being those supports. And obviously it's nice to see the Reinhardt profile picture, but even with the nerfs to Orisa, I don't think Reinhardt is where we're gonna be heading, unfortunately, Bowsy.
Yeah, it does seem like Reinhardt is not as sustainable now, especially with that DPS passive up, but who knows, we could very well see a brawl-style composition come out here from Munich Esports, but it's going to be a challenge up against their opposition in the Royal Dogs, coming off of a loss against the Pumpkins, coming in here with Sky and Edek on the DPS line, 8 rocking out that tank, and Enon and Phanosius on the support line here. They're looking to try and make their way through that lower bracket. Of course, they did make it to the second round of the playoffs, then got knocked down here by the Pumpkins.
Yeah, Pumpkins, I mean, they're towering above right now. That is the squad that you're probably predicting to do a lot of damage here in the playoffs here for the Masters division. But really, I mean, both these squads, again, specifically against each other, they are, they have historically played close. They're pretty matched in skills. Both their regular seasons ended up at a 4-4 series. But as we're taking a look over to our map selection, I believe it was Royal Dogs getting the first pick, since they were in that round 2 of the upper bracket, and they're going to be taking us to Samoa, Bowsy.
Yep, Samoa obviously tends itself to a lot of different compositions as well. This is obviously the newest control map, but it mostly is favored as a brawl map, minus maybe 1 point where you can run the Sigma Megalast, but everyone resorts to brawl either way.
Yeah, and so it really comes down to if these teams want to subscribe to that, or in this world where the DPS passive is just a little bit stronger, and now that we're out of Orisa prison, maybe these tanks want to unleash something new upon the lineups here, as we are starting out on the beachfront. That lovely little point's got the coconuts and stuff. At least as we're sitting in the spawn rooms right now, I don't know if I'd put any validity behind what Munich Esports is running, because Lucio Zen just might not be it. Meanwhile, on the other side of it, though, Royal Dogs, this is something I could actually see run out of the spawn room, right? Tracer, obviously going to benefit from that DPS passive buff, as well as Ramatra, having a large amount of sustainability might sort of just be the replacement for Orisa for the time being. But now that Munich Esports have gotten serious here, we're seeing that they're opting into that Sigma play style, but they're going to have an Echo in tow instead of that Tracer.
Yeah, definitely that Echo going to be providing a lot of damage here. It's going to be up to Sky on the side of Royal Dogs to try and deal with them and keep the tempo for that team alive here, as Royal Dogs immediately pushing right in to Munich Esports Celestial on the objective. PC only trying to speed around Shania, but they are eventually burnt down and killed out here by Stopars. It's going to be an early cap here from Royal Dogs as they continue putting the pressure onto Munich Esports.
Yeah, and that one pick, it is going to obviously slow the pace, no pun intended, that it's the Lucio that fell. But also, again, that Sigma, it likes to play the distance, likes to play a little bit slow and passive. So if 8 on this Ramatra can sort of push the aggression, push the tempo, constantly be in the face of Munich, it really is going to put a stifling to what this Sigma can accomplish.
So we'll see how Munich Esports are going to adapt with this Sigma. They're starting to push forward here as the Royal Dogs try to go for their backline, but end up getting separated in as a result. Sky getting knocked off that high ground as well means they're going to have to take that climb back up. A 8 popping the Nemesis form, punching into Shania. Sky's able to get rid of that Echo of Noah once again here, so the Royal Dogs still finding these picks one by one, and with Shania falling late here, it's going to be Munich retreating.
Yeah, and again, that's just another one fight for Royal Dogs here. They're just getting a little bit of cleanup going here. The Kiriko not long for this life, and really, it's just been, all Royal Dogs right now. They're building up to an impressive ult bank, already having 3 online. Meanwhile, Munich Esports, all they're really going to have to their name is this Kitsune Rush. Ooh, nice stickies to actually find out the Tracer there.
Yeah, and they forced out the recall from Stopiars as well, so they're unable to get that pulse bomb off effectively here. But it might not even matter because Croshy hit with a hinder, and ends up getting burnt down. And now 8 is just running into the side of Munich Esports Celestial. Shania running as fast as they can, but they are not the gingerbread man as they died at the hands of Annihilation.
Yeah, the one upside here from Munich is you didn't have to expend anything, and you're over to the Ramatra yourself now, so you have a massive ult advantage. But Royal Dogs, they're holding this position forward extremely well. They're going to continue to be aggressive here, especially potentially off the back of a Deadeye coming out from Sky. It really could be the zoning pressure, and one pick is all you might need to secure this round.
As Royal Dogs trying to keep this point under lockdown, but Munich Esports are going to break the doors open with this Kitsune Rush. Sky, however, finds the Deadeye kill onto Picasso before the fight even begins here. Munich Esports, however, do have real estate on the objective. They have the Annihilating Ramatra duplicate form from Noah, who was eventually burnt out of it, trying to look for a kill, but ends up getting killed out by Faunius in the middle of that fight. Munich Esports do flip the point, but they are looking worse for wear. Croshy is removed from the equation, so is Shania, and all that's left now is PC, the only, who's going to have to try and touch for desperation here as the overtime wick begins to burn. The Lucio knocked out of the fray here as the point flips over for Royal Dogs, and they take the beach.
Yeah, they take it in a pretty resounding fashion. It feels like Munich Esports, they started out on that Sigma composition, and when it got, unfortunately just outpaced by the Ramatra, they really didn't seem to be able to adapt in time. It was just an unfortunate situation. Hopefully, if they feel more confident in the Ramatra, they can sort of run out on it here and just be on a mirror from the start and, potentially try to give themselves a leg up in this fight. I do like the adaptations Munich is making, especially if they're going to play the Ramatra, right? That Baptiste coming in, obviously you can't play as fast, but the sustain healing is there if that fight goes long, and that Mei from Noah is going to help exactly that fight just prolong even longer and longer. Really, this is just a old school standard brawl composition you normally see with Reinhardt. Do you just replace it with Ramatra just because, again, Ramatra has that insane survivability and sustainability with the Nemesis form?
Yeah, definitely. We'll see if Munich Esports try to take advantage of that Mei wall. They already tried to use it first, but almost wall off Shania from the rest of their team here as Royal Dogs already facing a lot of pressure in their favor. Sky is able to get the first kill, however, onto Picasso, and now that's a lot of the damage from Munich Esports removed out of the equation early. PC the only also removed here, meaning that Croshy LP is the only support, and they're dead at the hands of Sky as well, as the Royal Dogs backed in a corner, but still able to retaliate.
Yeah, and, choosing their opportunity to sort of go in and take that engage is exactly how they were able to turn that fight in their favor. And realistically, when they are at a disadvantage, Royal Dogs, they're, like I talked about, right? They're going to have to play fast, as you're seeing on your screen with Eden right now. The Moira's healing, it is so unbelievably limited. But, picks like that, just taking out the other Ramatra, I guess that works.
Yeah, just hitting that right quick at the perfect time to get rid of Shania, and now that's the go button for Royal Dogs to just touch the spawn doors. Stopiars is going to be able to do it the best, getting 2 kills on the exit as Munich Esports forced to retreat all the way back into their spawn.
Yeah, and Munich, they really feel a little bit lost right now. They're having to try to find their way to approach this. It is going to be them trying to find stop on this Tracer, but again, they're almost being stifled where they don't want to move at all despite having a Lucio, right? They're almost scared of what's coming into them.
Stopiar is continuing to look for value here on this Tracer. Meanwhile, Croshy is removed at the beginning of the fight. 8 just pushing in with that Nemesis form and the Annihilation in tow. The beat even there from Faunius to continue the aggression and just continue the cleanup duty here from Royal Dogs.
Yeah, you get Sound Barrier and Annihilation out, so, Munich, you gotta be okay with that as you're now coming up towards your own ult bank, but really, I understand you want to play a little bit slower. You can't play as fast as a Moira can with the Baptiste, but you still have insane amounts of, healing that come out with that Baptiste, so you should be able to speed up the tempo a little bit.
Sopiar's Pulse Bomb does go in, and it does force out the Immortality Field here. And now that Deadeye from Sky trying to clean up the field, but they've already lost 2 of their teammates and their life as well. So Munich Esports able to break through the mold with only the Amplification Matrix used, and will take this point for their own.
Yeah, and now Royal Dogs has completely reset their ult economy. They have nothing to their name, so despite already taking up 88% here, Munich Esports, they should have a few fights in a row here where they can just sort of cycle ultimates, right? They shouldn't have to invest everything into one fight in some sort of desperation push. You know, each of these ults separately, the Blizzard, the Annihilation, should be able to win you a fight on their own. But really, when you start having to combine them, that's where Royal Dogs are going to look for their advantage, especially now that they have Sky with that insane pick potential in the Sojourn.
Yeah, it's going to be difficult. It's going to be easy for Munich Esports to not invest ultimates when you already find the first pick onto the central healer for the Royal Dogs and push them all the way back, though.
Yeah, and just Royal Dogs, they have to disengage their Moira missing. And again, Picasso coming up massive here. Really just getting pick after pick on this Cassidy. You can see the damage that, you know, you can just lay in here. And something to note, Bowsy, you know, the only ult expended was that Amplification Matrix. You're already halfway back to it.
Yeah, Munich Esports making everything worth of this hold right now. So Bears are going to try the flank angle again. Picasso is on watched-out duty as Royal Dogs start making their way back to the objective. Picasso focusing down that Tracer, trying to keep them out of line of sight. As here comes the Blizzard from Noah onto the objective. Deadeye used in tandem to burn down 8 to shreds, and Picasso continues to light up this kill feed and keep Munich Esports invested in this fight.
Yeah, and so now Royal Dogs are the ones that find themselves on the back foot here. We're ticking above 75%, which means we should be entering a final fight territory unless there's going to be a stall touch coming out at the end. There's going to be some DPS ultimates, and if the fight goes long, potentially a Ramatra Annihilation coming out from 8, but, you know, you're pushing into a sound barrier, another Amplification Matrix. It's going to be difficult to try to break through Munich Esports' defense.
Yeah, Munich Esports already had that defense with the wall, and this Annihilation from Shania as well, bringing in. So far, however, it's been a back-and-forth affair. Kroshi is removed. Fionis is also removed out of the equation, and the Royal Dogs stuck behind the wall, just barely able to touch with the help of that Tracer. But Munich Esports looking much better for wear here as Sopiars is burned to the ground. Eden can only keep that right-click quest for so long as 8 is going to be hopping the Annihilation, just trying to burn the members of Munich Esports and find the advantage here for the Royal Dogs. They only have the Lucio, however, to keep them alive, and that's not going to be enough as Picasso lights up the kill feed once more, and Munich Esports Celestial take a point on Samoa.
It was not looking pretty to start Royal Dogs. They had the momentum. There was even points where they were touching the spawn doors. But, you know, at the end of the day, Munich, they were able to sort of dig their heels in, figure out what needed to be done. And, you know, they started having the picks go their way, right? You know, we talk about that DPS passive, it being backed up to 20% now for reduced healing every time you're dealing damage. I mean, it really puts all of the power in the DPS in these compositions, right? And Picasso having a round like he did on that last one, that's exactly what you need. But now that we're all tied up 1-1 here, heading on into the downtown, it really is going to be interesting here, especially if Royal Dogs, they choose to roll out on this. It's almost like a double sniper-esque play here with the Hanzo and the Sojourn. You're intending to control the sightlines at range and not deal with that Mei being in your face constantly.
So Royal Dogs trying to play the distance game here. Munich Esports are going to be pushing into the small room, and it's going to be even difficult to push out of it because Kroshi is killed out by the skill orb by Aiden, so Munich Esports immediately forced to retreat as they are down their main heals.
Yeah, but, I mean, to be fair, obviously the damage orb is what got the kill there, but again, it's that spam damage, right? Hanzo, it's a pick we haven't seen in a long time in any terms of meta, but those storm arrows, just sort of laying them into a small choke way, you can get tons and tons of damage out, as you just saw there onto Picasso. So it is something to keep in mind here. Just firing arrows off randomly can be the name of the game, as Noah now taking up the lore buff, going over to Genji.
Definitely the lore buff in play. We'll see if the Shimada traditions continue to reign supreme here as Munich Esports trying to find themselves into the objective. They're just going to be pushing right onto the backline of Royal Dogs, trying to focus out the Lucio of Faonius, who's just going to be barely surviving until they're hit with the Swift Strike from Noah. But still, Royal Dogs keeping the sustain. Sky finding 2, 1 with the Dragon Strike, and now the cleanup duty is here for the Royal Dogs to keep this objective.
and it's absolutely beautiful from there. Munich Esports, they're starting to panic a little bit, I feel like, with these constant swaps, right? First you're over to the Genji, now you're over to the Sojourn, feeling like the Cassidy is just outranged. Obviously, that's not an unwarranted fear or anything. You definitely can feel that sort of pressure, but now heading into this next fight, you're not in the situation you want to be for Munich, because it is just Coalescence versus Amplification Matrix, and there's so many ways for the Royal Dogs to just sort of kite this one.
Royal Dogs having that Sojourn on the sideline, trying to bait out the members of Munich Esports, and they do exactly that. Sky finding two once again with this Hanzo. If Picasso was lighting up the last map, Sky is lighting up this one.
Yeah, and so now Royal Dogs, very similar situation to how we were there on Volcano, right? They're dominant, they're absolutely putting in the work, but this is where Munich Esports on Volcano was able to sort of flip that switch and figure out exactly what needed to be done, but it's going to be an uphill battle here because they're playing into so many ultimates on the side of Royal Dogs, and really, I mean, they might be able to match some of them, but it is just going to be a blow-for-blow trade and figuring out who can come out on top.
Munich Esports on the objective, pushing right into the side of Royal Dogs, using that amplification matrix deep into the enemy lines, but it doesn't matter. Stopiars as the overclock, sending every single railgun shot into all the members of Munich Esports Celestial, and claiming the victory here for the Royal Dogs on Samoa.
Yeah, and I was honestly very skeptical of the Hanzo Sojourn, but, there was never a point where Munich could really close that distance as a team. They had that one fight where they started to chase down the Hanzo. They were able to get a pick onto the Lucio, but it ended up being a trade. And again, just constantly being able to have that distance run away is what, exactly how you needed to play that composition for Royal Dogs. So kudos to them. They earned that map in style, but, as we're heading further and further into this series, there's only so many ways that you can sort of kite back, especially as we're heading into the different map types. So I'll be curious to see if that's sort of a strategy they continue to implement, or if that's something that we're just going to see for Control.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you look at 60% of that team lineup, Megalast, and you do not think of a comp that does not want to fight up front, but somehow Royal Dogs subvert expectations and are able to make it work in the end of the day. Munich Esports, however, they had some glimpses of hope here, Megalast, but they obviously need to try and change something here to try and get themselves into the driver's seat.
Yeah, and I mean, for all we know, it could just be, it could have just been the map, right? You had to close that range and you weren't able to do that. But heading on over to Hybrid, maybe you could play some range of your own or find different pathways and things of that nature to help close that distance a little bit easier. We did just get word in the ears that it's going to be Midtown that we're heading on over to next. So, think of first point exactly for that, right? You can either play those long sight lines on the defense, or if you're the offense, you choose not to take that range battle. There's a few different alleyways that you can sort of kite and pass through to get yourselves towards that objective. But, I mean, your rotations really have to be on point, especially when you're dealing with snipers like Sky on the other side, because, just being out of step, out of sync for even a moment, and that arrow can connect with a head.
Even though Midtown is what I call the King's Row of the West, it still can tend itself to a lot of those different styles. You can run Brawl, but there also is the potential to run Poke on this map, Megalast. And correct me if I'm wrong, we saw Sigma on that first point of Samoa from the side of Royal Dogs, so we could very well see that Sigma come back into the equation. Or I believe it might have been from the side of Munich, actually.
I was gonna say,
yeah. I was halfway there, but still, we saw the Sigma come out from the side of Munich, so we very well could see them try to go onto Poke, which might be a composition they are more favored on.
Well, yeah, but I mean, again, Poke, that's another composition, right? The Sojourn's going to fare better. Any sort of long-range hit scan or snipers are going to fare better in Poke compositions, right? I mean, the main sort of thing you think of when you're thinking of Poke compositions, Poke maps, is Circuit Royale, right? I mean, regardless of what the actual meta has been in Overwatch 2, that map has constantly been Sigma double snipers with a Baptiste Zen just trying to do what they can. So it is super, super interesting to see if that approach can sort of come onto other maps now that, again, we're sort of in a free range meta. People are still trying to figure out exactly what the best thing is. Both these teams have seemingly decided that Ramatra is the path forward, at least for the time being. But yeah, who honestly knows? At least here for the defense, you're going to see Picasso piloting that Sojourn, adding a little bit of range to the arsenal. And Noah back on that May. I mean, you're expecting Royal Dogs to play fast, so you really actually have to like get advantage out of these walls for the defense. Otherwise, it's just going to be another character that sort of gets run over in the face of the squad. Royal Dogs, it looks like, again, they're going to be on the Ramatra for their side, but they're going to be playing it fast with the Moira. They're going to want to take these fights incredibly quickly because, again, just from that healing swap of a Moira versus a Baptiste, the longer these fights go, Munich will just naturally gain an advantage as Eden runs out of heals.
So now Royal Dogs making their aggressive move here on their attack on Midtown. As Munich Esports beat them on that mirror composition, Sky going to be trying to poke out on these off angles with the Cassidy, looking for those clutch hinders to try and make the correct moves. They see Picasso on the high ground, but they're forced to retreat as now the push comes in from Munich Esports. The Shania goes straight to the back line. Felonius and Sky removed from the equation immediately as Munich Esports able to take control of this fight and just barely are able to touch that point to stop the back cap from Stopiars.
Yeah, you don't want to give away any free ticks at all. And now you're seeing the question is, how much do you invest into trying to hunt down that Tracer? Because you know that Stopiars is back there, but you can't exactly send the full team. Otherwise, you're just going to allow Royal Dogs to push the choke for free here.
Yep, as Royal Dogs try to push in, they are met with a wall, though, from Noah, trying to keep the rest of the team separated here. Munich Esports, however, do notice the Tracer on the back line, and that opens the door a little bit for Munich Esports, just enough that Croshy LP is now removed from the equation. Now the Royal Dogs trying to clean up these picks. Sky looking for these kills on this Cassidy, but doesn't find anything yet. Luckily, PC the Only is removed by their Moira, as so is Noah, but Shanae is still alive on the Ramatra, trying to turn the tide here. Eventually, though, they will get burned down by this Moira of Eden, and it's going to be Royal Dogs taking the first point.
And I think that was just a massive mistake there from Munich. They all turned towards the Tracer on point because they were so scared of giving up that one tick. But in the process, you left your Baptiste on the staircase with no help in sight. Meanwhile, the rest of Royal Dogs being able to seize advantage of that opportunity, taking out the BAP. And now you're seeing 8 play super aggressively here, try to catch somebody in rotation. But it seems like the entirety of Munich Esports was at least able to gather themselves together here. So now, as that payload slowly starts to come around the first corner, it is going to be Munich holding this high ground. But actually, it seems like they might want to get aggressive here.
Yeah, they got rid of Felonius, who was hiding in that small staircase, so the Royal Dogs have no speed boost to get out of this equation, and the Royal Dogs are suffering as a result. Now, actually, speaking of suffering, 8 is the one who's going to be suffering and forcing the enemy team to do exactly that, while Munich Esports, in a panic maneuver, forced to pop the Blizzard and their own annihilation to try and turn the tide of battle. But at the end of the day, it's just going to go to Royal Dogs. They're going to continue pushing this cart under the Midtown Tunnel.
Well, I mean, I wouldn't even say necessarily anybody's won or lost that fight, right? It was just a Lucio that died at the start. Nobody else managed to fall over on either squad. So it is just going to be this payload pushing here. So this high ground advantage sort of getting mitigated by the Tracer, just pushing the cart ever so slightly through tunnel. For Royal Dogs, as you're seeing, the rest of them stuck at the corner right now. So it is just going to be a fallback, though, completely giving up the high ground for Munich Esports just to try to remove this Tracer. And they're able to do it.
Yeah, Picasso gets rid of that Tracer, but now you've sacrificed that high ground, and you've also sacrificed your Lucio here, PC the Only, getting picked out by Sky as the Royal Dogs now have a positional advantage. Munich Esports trying to find their way back onto the objective as now the sides have been flipped. So if they need to touch this cart, they need to run through this barricade that the Royal Dogs are separating at the top of the staircase. They're just barely able to do it, but at the cost of both of their supports, which means that at the end of the day, the Royal Dogs are going to clean up this point and take the entrance into Grand Central Station for their own.
Yeah, I'm honestly just a little bit puzzled, right? Because I wouldn't even say that Royal Dogs, they did some crazy thing there, right? They really just sort of waited for their Tracer that it forced everybody off of high ground there on the defense. Munich, they gave everybody up just to try to move down to the Tracer, and you don't need to do that, right? Send at most 2 people just to contest the cart, get the Tracer, feeling a little bit scared for their lives. But I guess heading into the next one, Munich has a massive ult advantage here, so they should be able to get a good defensive fight.
A massive mistake by Munich nonetheless. They have the opportunity to rectify it. They pop out the Blizzard here. PC the Only also popping that beat to keep everybody alive here as now the picks are starting to glow blue in the kill feed. Sopiars is threatening Picasso in the backline, forcing the attention of that Sojourn away. And meanwhile, Noah is burnt down by 8, so the Royal Dogs are continuing to blow through every single blow. Now 8 popping the Annihilation, trying to burn down the members of Munich Esports, looking specifically to PC Only, who's riding around the top of Grand Central Station. They won't be able to kill them, but they'll continue the advancement for the Royal Dogs.
Sky managed to get that pick in the end, so now short-handed, but the amplification matrix could be massive.
Rashi LP using that matrix right in the middle, but Picasso goes a little bit too far out of the equation and steps right into the clutches of 8's Nemesis form. 8 is lighting up the speed and killing everything in sight to continue enabling the Royal Dogs.
Oh my goodness, it really just feels like Munich, they can't find, this break, this edge in the fight that they need. So now heading into, it's going to be potentially final fight here. There's going to be a sound barrier for Royal Dogs Favonius to help try to live through either this overclock or this annihilation, depending on who decides to pop which ultimate first.
They pop both of them at the same time. Picasso and Shania both using their ultimates here. And now the pick's starting to glow red in the kill feed as a result. Sky finding 2. Stopiars burning down this Ramatra of Shania. And now all that's left is Noah in their ice block form. Not even that. Krashi and PC come back in with the Kiriko Lucio. But they are not long for this world as they are both going to meet a fate with the skill orb. And the cart will sail into Grand Central Station's final objective here with 2 minutes and 23 seconds left on the time bank for Royal Dogs.
Yeah, and Royal Dogs, they're piloting their comp well, don't get me wrong, but I really, I'm just mystified and confused at some of the decisions that Munich is trying to come through with here. It's leaving me baffled for lack of better terms. They're constantly rotating 5 people to try to get rid of a Tracer, and they're not even walking away with the pick half the time. They're insistent on piloting this Mei, which normally can help the Ramatra get a little bit more aggressive, but instead of the Mei walls ever being used to actually corner somebody off or section off the team, it's sort of just used defensively. And then, another thing is following up on these ultimates. There was a lot of times there where Noah was able to drop Blizzard, but there's just nobody being killed out of it, right? Even when members are frozen up, the focus gets driven elsewhere. I feel like, potentially there's just sort of a shot calling tunnel vision thing that's happening here, and that's something that you have to correct comms-wise, right? There's no character, no heroes that you can pick that'll fix that one for you. It just comes down to, your actual pressure in the moment in your actual communications.
Yeah, for being a team called Munich Esports Celestial, they seem to be stuck in a black hole right now, just constantly seeming to be lost in the sauce. So we'll see if this attack is going to favor them better here, Megalast, especially with them now showing this Sigma and potentially using that Symmetra.
Yeah, it looks like they're going to want to teleport the Bastion in, and it's sort of a bunker strategy, right? Reinhardt doesn't have the survivability Sigma does, so you sort of just teleport past the choke, that way you don't have to deal with it at all. So now being able to set up in the high ground here, and just putting your Bastion up here with a Baptiste that's, infinitely harder to try to get at and do damage to. It's a phenomenal sort of strategy, but the issue is somebody has to go out to contest that point to force anybody into the LOS of the Bastion. But it seems like they're actually gauging for another teleporter onto this other high ground, so they're just going to be caught out wide in the open.
Yeah, from that FDNY Engine 11 building to the high ground of the objective here. Munich Esports using those teleporters to just maneuver around the objective, and they're going to gain a tick as a result. But now 8 and Stopiars pushing in, taking those multiple pincer angles. The 8 will lose their life, but it's at the cost of Noah here. So Munich Esports trying to keep themselves stabilized, but they do get rid of Favonius. So now only the Moira, Tracer, and Cassidy are left in the equation. Make that -1, make that -2, and make that 1 point for Munich Esports.
Yeah, I was not confident in this teleporter strategy, but it ended up working out. So the question is, do you continue to pilot this? We've seen, some teams sort of play the Symmetra and teleport people around and make it work. The best team I can think of is Space Station right now. So, it could be a strategy that pays out for you, but Noah giving up that teleport ability to instead go transcend time on the Tracer here, just maybe potentially trying to take some poke as Apollos comes through. based on the fact that we didn't see anything in chat from beforehand, I'm going to guess the auto disconnect had something to do with it.
Yeah, I would not be surprised. I think someone from the Royal Dogs was positioned on the right side of that objective. You saw that the Sigma was pinging it on the side of Munich Esports. I think I may or may not have seen them running into a wall, or they just started facing off screen. I assumed, oh, they're running into a wall because they disconnected. So, yep, we just got confirmation. Someone on the side of Royal Dogs DC'd. I would bet you money it's whoever was in that building. Nonetheless, though, it's definitely interesting to see the Tracer swap come so early from the side of Munich Esports after that Symmetra strategy worked so well for the Megalast. It could be a factor of just the second point not being suited for Symmetra, but still, if it ain't broke, why try to fix it?
I mean, it's one of those things where it's almost a gimmick strategy, right? There's very few teams that will ever attempt to pilot it after a first fight, even if the fight wins, right? So that's sort of maybe the mentality. It's the first time we've seen them swap over to this Tracer this confidently, right? They've been playing a lot of hit scan. You've seen some May and things of that nature come out from Munich. So potentially the Tracer, again, it could be an answer to sort of this flanking Tracer, right? Even if you're not winning those Tracer duels, just constantly harassing, keeping the other Tracer at bay, that's all you ever really need to do. It's a strategy I've employed myself, because I promise I am not a good Tracer in the slightest, but if you can just be annoying, be a thorn in the other Tracer's side so they have to look at you and pay you attention, I mean, you can come away with some very surprising results.
Absolutely. It definitely can be a matter to just try to distract the most impactful player on the enemy team, which is that Tracer that can just set up those pincer maneuvers that we tried to see from the side of Royal Dogs back on point number 1. We did see some glimmers of it. They were able to get a kill with it, but it didn't result into anything massive because it was a Symmetra that they removed, not a support, not anything of matter in that sort of situation, especially when you don't need the TP because you've already gotten the objective. Still, though, it's still good to get rid of that Tracer, at least try to distract them and keep them away from your team comp, because if you're able to do that, then it takes a longer time for Royal Dogs to set up these pincer maneuvers here, Megalast. So it can work out in the end, even if your Tracer is not up to snuff.
Yeah, and so that's potentially a strategy we are going to see employed here. We are just, ever waiting patiently. Internet connections and things of that nature are always fun, but really it's the breath of fresh air that Munich needed to be able to cap that first point so fast, because they do have a time bank that they have to compete with, which means they have to cap the map with at least 1 second left over. They can't be in overtime, otherwise they'll be, in best case scenario, a draw territory. But yeah, I mean, Munich Esports are potentially going to be able to set up on cart here with the Sigma, with the Bastion, just sort of raining in damage while your Tracer tries to wreak havoc. It's just a question of if that composition is going to work, or if it's just going to get picked apart super, super fast.
Yeah, definitely. We'll have to see if Munich Esports' Midtown composition will continue working into their favor. Not to mention the risk that you have with continuing to play the Sigma without that Symmetra teleporter. Sure, you have the Lucio speed boost, Megalast, but you're up against a Ramatra, and Ramatra can just run right past your shield, pop their Nemesis form, and just start pummeling you to death.
I mean, yeah, that's the best way to sum it up. But, I mean, it's very interesting, right? Because we're in that sort of tank gray zone right now where everyone's trying to scramble and figure out what the best is, right? That Orisa just left a massive hole, a void, if you will, for the entirety of the tank lineup. And, as we've now, about a full day beyond the Orisa nerfs, right? Everyone was so happy at first. So, finally, we don't have to play Orisa. But seeing that DPS passive increase, every single tank player has probably realized every tank feels awful. You're getting pressured out. You're getting constantly harassed. And you realize you weren't playing Orisa because it was meta. You were playing Orisa because it was the only tank that could stand in the war of all of this damage that comes out from the rest of, the heroes in the game. But now that we are back, we got that reconnect occurring here, and yeah, it is going to be interesting as we see, the exact strategy play out, where you're going to wait for this Sigma to sort of push out with the Bastion turret form, and now Noah on the Tracer he should be hounding the backline. I've yet to see where the Tracer actually is.
I believe they're currently pushing the cart. Stopiars went to go after Noah, who is pushing the cart under the Midtown Tunnel, doing their best impression of Royal Dogs' attack right now, as they are currently focused on that backline of Munich Esports. Celestial having a little bit of case of deja vu, but nonetheless, Stopiars is here to contest the Tracer of Noah, as they're trying to burn them down. But again, this idea of just the Tracer distracting the other Tracer here, Megalast, is what's going to try to enable Munich Esports Celestial until they lose Picasso to the hands of Sky. And now that Tracer's dead, this entire push has gone to waste.
Yeah, but I mean, you see the difference in approaches, right? Munich Esports, they send all 5 people on their defense down to contest that Tracer, whereas they, the entirety of Royal Dogs, they put their faith in Stop. They were able to just be like, yeah, you go take that Tracer 1v1. Obviously took probably a little bit longer than they expected, but just being able to win it out is exactly what needed to occur there. So now, Munich Esports, they are in a tough spot, right? They don't have that teleporter, so they are going to have a bit of a harder time assaulting this high ground where Royal Dogs is determined to play at, but seems like a very long rotation here up the side is going to be the plan.
They also have this configuration artillery from Picasso to try and initiate this full course push in as they start making their advance onto the high ground and trying to force off the Royal Dogs. The amplification matrix used in tandem here, the beat from Felonius to keep everybody alive from that, and PC the only caught out by a pulse bomb from Stopiars, so the Royal Dogs able to keep themselves sustained through this. They do lose Sky in the aftermath though. Croshy LP finding that crucial kill as they're trying to keep themselves alive, but are burned down by this Tracer that is wreaking havoc in the back line.
Yeah, and, I think that this is the point where you might have to give up on the Baptiste dream and you go over to either a Moira or a Kiriko. Nothing against Croshy. I feel like, the healing output is there for the rest of the team, but for yourself, right, you're just not able to, have that same level of sustain that you need to survive that, a Moira or a Kiriko have, right, either with your cleanse, your teleport as Kiriko, your fade ability as Moira. There's just so many tools to keep you alive, whereas Baptiste, he gets to jump a little bit. That's all he's got.
So now Munich Esports pushing in here with this next push. Here comes the Annihilation from 8. Forces out the beat here from PC the only. And the Gravitic Flux from Shania catches onto Aiden. So now Felonius is the only support left here for the side of the Royal Dogs. 8, however, still alive. Finds the kill onto Picasso with the Annihilation. And PC the only and Croshy are removed out of the equation. Shania, however, is barely still alive. But they're eventually going to have to try and retreat as there is no one left in the fray.
Yeah, and I mean, that's the issue with using Sound Barrier as your answer to Ramatra's Annihilation, right? Because if you're still surrounding the Ramatra, you can't get away from his range of doing damage. I mean, he can genuinely just wait you out every single time. That ult is going to keep ticking for a very long time unless there's nobody in range taking damage from it. And it just feels like the Ramatra's better.
Yeah, the Ramatra is just better, and that is clear with the kill feed. 8 finding 2 in this fight. PC only, not long for this world either, as now Munich Esports Celestial backed into a corner here with basically a minute left on the time bank, Megalast.
Yeah, a minute left to their name, and they're really just starting to fumble for options here. And it's not looking, in the best situation. There's probably another pulse bomb that's going to come out from Stop here that could sort of just put an end to another push and send us to that final fight territory. Munich Esports, it's going to be hard for them to rotate up onto high ground. It's going to be hard for them to just rotate under the cart. Every single path they choose to take is going to be a difficult one. And again, look at this. They're sending the full team up into this building where the Tracer was. Like, it's constantly just having to rotate 5 people for a Tracer and not coming away with that kill over and over is absurd.
Yeah, it's just, it's not right logic. It's just it's a very questionable logic, but Munich Esports Celestial do use that as an opportunity to rotate around to the high ground because they were able to take the back roads to get over to where they are right now, which is on top of the Midtown Tunnel, facing off against the Royal Dogs. Stopiars is looking for their adversary in Noah, and Sky pops the overcross but gets killed out by Shania in the middle of the ultimate. Now Felonius is forced to use that beat to keep the rest of the Royal Dogs sustained. The pulse bomb is there from Stopiars, but it lands onto the Ramatra, and they're able to block through it as now Munich Esports Celestial have the advantage on this cart. They get rid of the Lucio for the Royal Dogs as well as they're continuing to clean up these picks. And again, I've never since the deja vu, Munich Esports Celestial putting Royal Dogs in the defense and are now taking Grand Central Station.
Yeah, but they do it in overtime. So now with only a minute 30 added to the clock, the pressure is absolutely on for Munich Esports to try to finish this map with any sort of time in the bank in order to guarantee themselves a chance in some overtime rounds instead of just playing for a draw. But you can't focus on that now. Right now, you just got to go one step at a time. And your first step, it's just this Tracer still being a thorn in your side. The fact that it's this much of a problem is absolutely absurd. And the fact that you're devoting so much attention to it as well, it's just insane.
Yeah, and it's costing Munich Esports Celestial so much time and so much attention. Croshy LP, once again, is dead. Picasso wasn't looking in that direction. They were focused more on the Tracer of Stopyars, which has just been a thorn in the side.
And now you're going to, again, be in an overtime situation, right? There's just no two ways about it coming out of spawn here. You could win every fight flawlessly. You're going to finish this map in overtime, if you're to finish it at all. The upside being you have ultimates, right? It's just going to be 8's Annihilation versus the World here, unless Eden can close out that last few percent to a Kitsune Rush. The sound barrier from PC The Only probably going to be used to answer back. And so it really is going to come down to finding some value, and that's going to be the first thing, right? Removing the thorn. The Tracer's gone.
Yeah, Stopyar is now removed from the equation here. Now the Subway Surfers video feed has been closed as Munich Esports Celestial start moving this card through the Grand Central Station, but they're only going to be able to do it in overtime here, so the best they're hoping for is a draw. Nonetheless, they still have the potential to try and capture this objective. Picasso looking for that crucial first pick as Stopyars is back in the fight, rotating around. Here comes the Annihilation from A, trying to burn down the members. Shania pops there on as well, but they're burned down by Sky, using the Peacekeeper and fanning the hammer to get rid of that Ramatra. 8 trying to keep themselves alive with the block as the pulse bomb from Noah lands, and Sky finds 2 with the Deadeye from the back line. Make it 4 for Sky in this fight as they clean up the remains of Munich Esports Celestial, and the Royal Dogs go to match point.
That's tragic. It was just, unfortunately, a little too far forward there from the Ramatra on Munich's side. They didn't get that sound barrier in time to keep them alive, and it just meant that without the Ramatra, without the sustain, the Annihilation was just too powerful on the other side. You know, as you see there perfectly, Sky taking out the Ramatra before coming up top with this beautiful Deadeye, shutting down the overclock from Picasso. Royal Dogs, you know, like we said, last time these two teams played, it went the 5-mapper, it went Munich's way, and Royal Dogs seems to want to have none of that. They'd rather just end this in a quick affair as they now stand on match point.
Yeah, they do stand on match point, but an interesting fact about that Map 5 series, Megalas, that was a reverse sweep for Munich Esports. Need I say more, or do we jump to a break real quick before we head into map number 3? We'll jump into a quick halftime break, and when we return, we'll see if history will repeat itself and Munich Esports are in a position to reverse sweep, or if the Royal Dogs are going to shut down that potential and take this match as quickly as possible. Don't go anywhere. We might have a banger on our hands. If you were any other team and you were looking at Royal Dogs' score right now against you, you would be a little bit nervous, as Royal Dogs are currently at match point. But if you're Munich Esports Celestial, you're looking at this with a sign of hope, as the last time you were in this position, you were able to reverse sweep. Bowser here with Megalast as we head into map number 3, and while the potential is there, Megalast, there has to be some changes as we head into Suravasa.
Yeah, I mean, split focus, that's pretty much the name of it right now. You're constantly splitting, giving all of the attention over to Stopiaris on this Tracer, and again, it's not even the matter of you're splitting the attention, it's the matter you're splitting the attention and not killing the Tracer at the very least. Like, if you're turning 5 people to the Tracer and killing the Tracer, that's great. But Stopiaris, more often than not, is the one walking away with a pick, generally onto that Baptiste of all characters, removing so much of that healing. So, I mean, there's a few different ways to adapt, right? Either you can actually fully commit onto the Tracer, or, just hope you can live long enough, or potentially just give up that Baptiste, right? Like we were talking about, go over to the Moira, the Kiriko. You have a few different options that are a little bit more survivable against Tracer's onslaught for the backline. But yeah, I mean, that you reverse sweep once before, so maybe that'll give you that, courage, that confidence to, not, give up here just yet as we're heading into Suravasa for Flashpoint. But your backs are against the wall. It is going to be a lot. And I gotta say, I'm pleasantly surprised our observers for the first time ever didn't find a crocodile. Instead we're just actually going through the map. Wow.
Yeah. Wow. No crocodile feeds. Just like earlier on Samoa, we had no crab feed. Okay, maybe they might have time to do it now because there is a disconnect on the side of Royal Dogs. Nonetheless, so again, you talked about that Tracer a lot. I made the comparison before. The Munich Esports seem to be staring into a black hole. If there's any source of light, it is that Tracer of Stopiars that is just continuing to pressure the backline. Everybody is focused on it. It's like Beetlejuice in the sky, just continually focusing and always being the point of attention.
Yeah, and it's just time and again, like it feels like we're almost being mean, we're almost hammering down on it too much, but that is the flaw separating these teams right now. The rest of Munich Esports, they're playing well, they're rotating ultimates, they're rotating their cooldowns properly. Everybody else, like everything else is going right. It's just that they're giving this Tracer so much attention and respect. If you fix that, whether it's giving yourself a more sustainable backline, or finding ways to either commit onto the Tracer, guarantee the kill, or commit onto the rest of the squad and hope the Tracer doesn't get that kill in the meantime. As long as you can do that, this game gets a hell of a lot closer. Like, Royal Dogs really hasn't, been pushed to the test yet. It's just, it really is that simple.
Yeah, the closest we've had to Royal Dogs being pushed to the test was on Samoa Volcano, where that Tracer was a non-factor for half of that point, Mega. So what do Munich Esports have to try and rekindle that energy that they had on Samoa Volcano? And it looks like they're going to be doing it with the Venture.
Yeah, Venture receiving some unfortunate nerfs, but still has a bit of damage about them here. And I'm interested to see the Venture because it plays at those closer ranges that, maybe Tracer wants to play in, so you're not as confident with your Cassidy. Like, right now, this is an adaptation where, yeah, exactly. You should be going in because you realize the Tracer's not there.
Yep, and you realize Sky is on that off angle as well, so the Cassidy immediately burnt down, and now the speed boost gone as well here for the side of the Royal Dogs. Stopiar is still trying to poke in the backline, but it's not going to be enough damage to try and eliminate these picks, as it's going to be Munich Esports Celestial taking the point.
Yeah, and exactly this, right? Stopiaris on this Tracer takes such long rotations. That identification from Munich Esports there was perfect. They realized, hey, the Tracer's out on point, miles away. Let's go. They blitz into the backline with their speed boost. They're able to take out the Cassidy, the Lucio, and just cut the legs out from under them. More of that, please, Munich Esports.
So now, Munich Esports trying to continue this advantage for their own. The Royal Dogs pushing up through the main. The Tracer currently in their backline, and Croshy's able to get rid of them before they're even able to make the advance onto the objective. And now that's the go button for Munich Esports, just pushing into the sidelines of the Royal Dogs. But Noah is removed by the hinder from Sky here, so that Cassidy is still a threat. But Munich Esports are willing to take what they've taken so far.
Yeah, and you know that you're going to be down one for this fight. The Venture's not going to get back in time. You're just hoping for an amplification matrix.
And Shania is going to hopefully try to provide that, getting a lot of damage pumped into them here. Croshy has that amplification matrix online, waiting to use it at the right time, but the right time is not now because your Ramatra is removed from the equation. Picasso quick to follow, and the point is going to flip over.
I'm just baffled as to why not to commit there. Like, I get that you're down one, but that definitely could be the thing that turns the tide, because now you've given Royal Dogs the in that they were asking for. They've been able to now build up towards all of their ultimates. They have point control, and it's now going to be a absolutely dastardly affair where it's going to be a heavy ult fight commit in order to try to turn this one back in your favor and take the point back.
Get ready for Goat's flashbacks. We could see all the ults popped here at once, as now 8 is going to initiate with the first ult with that Nemesis form. The beat comes out from PC only to keep the rest of Munich Esports alive as they try to burn down this Ramatra, who's also getting healed by that coalescence from Eden. Meanwhile, the backline of the Royal Dogs is starting to get pressured out. Both their DPS now removed from the equation by Noah and Croshy, and now the Royal Dogs trying to retreat out of this, but they lose their Moira. Their speed boost of Falonius not there to keep the Ramatra safe for now, as the Royal Dogs forced to cower into a corner as Munich Esports make the advance as fast as they can. PC only not meeting the fists of fury as they are able to stay alive and keep Munich Esports engaged to take the market on Surabasa.
They take market. Overtime Wick is just going to burn down here, but it's so amazing how different this Munich Esports squad is when Krosh can stay alive on this Baptiste. They can be a damage dealer, they can be a healer, and just constantly provide all of the help that the team needs. And I don't know whether Krosh is playing differently or if Noah is potentially pressuring out this Tracer a little bit harder here, but as you're seeing, they're able to rotate onto Palace first, and now they get the greatest positioning you could ever want. You're going to put your Sojourn on high ground with a railgun ult to boot.
And they also have that amplification matrix still in the back pocket if they want to make that railgun shots even more lethal. They initiate with the amplification matrix before Croshy dies, and now that overclock coming out from Picasso, forcing the entirety of the Royal Dogs to just cower in fear, as something like that could just happen. You just get hit in the head by the railgun and die immediately, as Faunonius demonstrates perfectly, and the tectonic shock thrown in from Noah as well is just going to clean up the field for Munich Esports.
Where was this Munich? Where were they the first two maps? I feel as though we've tuned into a different team or something. Like, they're playing all on top of each other. The synergy is there. They're peeling for each other. They're cycling their ults without having to overcommit to any of these fights. It's amazing by every single stretch of the imagination here. To continue this one going, they're going to have Annihilation to the next fight. They're probably going to be met with Royal Dogs having theirs online. 8 is so close, but Noah again taking the Tracer out of the fight.
Yeah, very good start so far. Munich Esports look revitalized, and they have the suffering of 1,000 Ramatras coming in their favor. Shania pushing the Royal Dogs all the way back, killing out that Lucio in the act. And now Munich Esports one fight away from going to Flashpoint map point.
Yeah, and, the Tracer's been given up here. Stapiari's over to the Echo now, potentially, trying to play out of that Venture's range, those drills just being a little bit too high damage for them. So now it is going to be a push here from 8 with the Annihilation in tow.
Here comes that Annihilation immediately here. Royal Dogs keeping themselves initiated with the beat from PC only here as they continue to hold this high ground. And the Royal Dogs do not consider the points in the entirety of this fight. Yes, you get the kill into Shania, but the damage has been done. Munich Esports caps the points.
That's tragic more than anything. If we're just being honest here, you're seeing PC run off of the map at lightning speeds. You come into that and you commit both your Annihilation and your Coalescence. You think, all right, this might be the one for us, but it just ultimately doesn't go your way. To be fair, you get this first cap on Garden. More likely than not, you're going to have at least the strong defensive positioning of already holding the point, and Munich is going to have to be the assaulters once more here, but it's such a bizarre thing from Royal Dogs, but they do get that first pick to stabilize.
Yeah, definitely getting that pick when you cap the objective means that they're going to continue holding this objective for their own, and they're pushing forward to try and find those late staggers. PC the only is one of them, and now that speed boost is gone, meaning the go button is initiated, and all of the Royal Dogs just pushing up to the spawn doors of Munich Esports and stopping them from getting anywhere near the objective.
Yeah, and so now it is Royal Dogs firmly back in control. They can start cycling their own ultimates properly. They have their sound barrier as well as both their DPS in tow, plus 8. It feels like it's never far away from that Annihilation, so that's a nice tool to always have your Ramatra close to. Munich Esports, this is their first real fight with ults for a second now, so they'll have to see if their engage can work.
Here comes the also over from the Royal Dogs, the Nemesis, the Overclock, and the Duplicate coming out here. 8 finding 2 with those hands. Stopiar's getting 1 with their own, and that is a full-scale cleanup from the Royal Dogs, a team wipe from them, and it looks like that they are on the road to capping the Gardens.
Yeah, Garden should be theirs. If I'm Munich Esports, I'm not even going to try to send people over to contest. I'm just going to gamble on which of the other 2 points is going to unlock. You know, if you're Munich Esports, you're hoping that it's Ruins, but if it went to Palace, then, I mean, you can still get there first, as it seems like or not Palace, I should say Temple. We already did Palace, but yeah, so now we're heading on in here, and Munich, their gamble paid off. They can get onto point first. They have that defensive positioning, as well as they have the ult advantage now.
Yeah, it's easy to really guess the point when it's basically on the same side and they are next to each other. Nonetheless, Munich Esports taking that advantage, using the amplification matrix to just push back the Royal Dogs as much as possible so they can cap this objective for their own. And you can see the Royal Dogs just completely backing out, ready to re-engage again when they have the speed boost online from Polonius, and that's exactly what they're going to do, pushing right into the objective with the Annihilation and the Coalescence again. This is the same thing we saw back on Palace when they unfortunately had that Charlie Niner, but now the Annihilation and Beat are here from Shanae and PCD only, but it's not going to matter. The cleanup is still there, and the Royal Dogs are still going to come out on top.
And that's disastrous, for lack of a better term, for Munich Esports. You threw 4 ultimates into that, traded it for 3, and still lost that fight resoundingly. So now it is just going to be the tectonic shock here from Noah that potentially has to be the thing that gets you a good engage. But again, this Echo has a duplicate online, duplicating Ramatra. You have so much extra health that you get added, you know, to an Echo's health pool there. It's basically a second tank on the field that can build Annihilation with just a few punches. It's going to be difficult here for Munich Esports to try and re-engage this one successfully.
We'll see if they're able to do it nonetheless. Noah has that tectonic shock. They're almost killed out of the equation before the fight even begins, but here they go, popping out the excavation initiation. Not able to find anything with it, though, as the shield is there from the duplicated Echo to block all of that damage as they continue just pushing straight into the backline of Munich Esports Celestial, eliminating their adversary on their own Ramatra, and now Royal Dogs have flipped this script on its head and are now at their own Flashpoint map point.
Yeah, and we have to remember, Royal Dogs, they just need this map. The series will be done. They will have locked it up, as we are going to be heading to Ruins here. Munich Esports, you know, they're looking down the barrel of getting reverse swept instead of starting the reverse sweep. You know, they had those first 2 points on Flashpoint. They were looking incredible, but it seems like the ult rotations has just thrown them for a loop here. So now, heading into Ruins, it should be Munich Esports getting there first. They're going to have this amplification matrix online from Krosh, but this overclock from Sky, it's been so lethal so far. I have an odd feeling it might come up big here again.
Stopiar is poking out with this Echo, trying to find these crucial kills, maybe find something to bring the fight in their favor. Here comes the Annihilation, the Amplification Matrix from Croshy. The overclock popped in by Sky, but they're unable to find anything because there's just a lot of cover keeping them out of sight from the rest of the Munich Esports Celestial team. The point will flip for the side of Royal Dogs, which could be crucial in the long game, but as for now, it's going to be Munich Esports just cleaning up the scraps and taking the point for their own.
Yeah, but I mean, this point contest is massive right now for Royal Dogs. As you see how quickly Flashpoint maps tick up 23%. That's, I mean, potentially another fight that Royal Dogs could get in an overtime situation. So you'll absolutely take that. Noah now over to the Echo, matching the Echo on the other side. It is going to be this sort of back and forth as both teams are building towards some heavy ultimates once again here. It really is going to come down to just being able to find value finally here from Munich Esports. They haven't had success actually converting these ultimates into kills, eliminations, or team fight wins for a little bit now, so they have to be able to make something work.
Munich Esports need to use this as well as they can here as the push comes in from the Royal Dogs. Here comes the duplicate coming out from Noah pretty early into this engage as they are now pushing forward in that Nemesis form. 8, however, is going to pop the Annihilation. Now Stopiar is in the backline with their own Ramatra trying to bring suffering to their backline, but now both duplicates are burnt out. Noah, however, is the first one dead. Now it's Shania trying to use their own Annihilation to burn down the field of the Royal Dogs, but they are backed into a corner and are burned down by 8. By the way, still having that Annihilation up, and now the cleanup is there from the Royal Dogs to take this point back.
Yeah, and Royal Dogs, they just burned everything, so it is going to be, you know, with how quickly Flashpoint goes, it could be a one fight, one and done situation here. The only ultimates that should come up online, unless a fight goes incredibly long, is going to be what's already on the board. So it's going to be Overclock versus Overclock. The advantage for Munich Esports is that they have that amplification matrix to help them out. But if they don't have the position to put this down, if they don't have the space, or if they just...
That is crucial! Munich Esports no longer have their Baptiste, and they're stuck in a corner. They have to try and retreat, but they can only do so the hard way. And now Royal Dogs are looking down the barrel of a win.
Yeah, it's going to be incredibly difficult to get on to this point. We saw a C9 occur for Royal Dogs, and this could end with a C9. Munich Esports, they might even have to just, int somebody to point, letting them die before truly getting there, as you're seeing already the engage.
No one's there to touch. No one trying to get over there to the point. The PC, however, is able to touch, but it's cut at the cost of their Echo and their Baptiste. The amplification matrix does come out, but Picasso is removed from the equation as the Munich Esports will not be able to get the reverse sweep here today. The Royal Dogs keep their run alive in the lower bracket.
It felt like Munich Esports, that third map, they were coming back into it, but then old habits die hard. They split their focus, and they just couldn't sort of muster up that third round win. Royal Dogs, they played incredibly well on that third map. I gotta give them credit. Being able to, sustain so many ult fights where they were at such a disadvantage. Just being able to weather the storm time and again off of, Moira Lucio, right? The less, heal-heavy backline compared to the Baptiste. And just Munich Esports, you gave it your all. But Royal Dogs, they just truly were the better team today.
Yeah, definitely the Royal Dogs learning from their mistakes in their matchup with Munich Esports in the regular season and being able to rectify them here today. Even after a brutal C9 on the Palace, they were still able to bring it back into their favor here, Megalas, and now they are moving up through the lower bracket of the Season 13 EU Masters tier and will face off against Ushi's Daycare next week. That's, I'm not going to say that's going to be a difficult match, but it very well could be a very difficult match for them next week. But nonetheless, their playoff hopes stay alive for the meanwhile.
Yeah, I was going to say, listen, you can worry about next week. You got through this week. You're still in the bracket. You're still in contention. So Royal Dogs, pat yourselves on the back. You did amazing. You did a great job. And, I mean, there's really nothing much else to say. They did it in a 3-0 fashion. Obviously, Flashpoint went a little bit closer than they expected, but being able to get the job done at the end of the day is all that matters. And, Munich Esports, it was fun having you. You had a pretty solid season, but unfortunately, for somebody to win, that means there also has to be a loser. So hopefully we see y'all again in, Season 14 whenever that rolls around, because, it's always fun to have great competition like this.
Yeah, definitely. Munich Esports had the potential to turn this series around. It just didn't fall into the cards this way. But definitely a really strong team throughout the entirety of the Season 13 of CGL. But that's going to do it for our coverage here today. Make sure you stay tuned because there are a plethora of matches happening throughout the entirety of this week for the CGL playoffs, especially because considering that some teams have to play 2 matches this week, Megalas, which is gruesome in its own right, but still, it means there's a lot more matches that we have the potential to produce.
Yeah, so obviously make sure you stay tuned. I think we actually literally have a game coming up in about an hour or so, give or take, so make sure you're able to tune on into those games. But of course, it's been a pleasure with Bowsy. We have our amazing production crew. We got Beam, we got Lottie, we got Zusor, being those lovely people getting you all the action fed. But I mean, with all that being said, that is it for us here now. We'll check in with everybody later, and we'll see you all next time.